Main teaching, I think if you say like a sutra, like a tantra, and like a dzogchen, the great perfection teaching, they're very, very similar. And probably also, some of the historians might say there's influences between back and forth from each other. But today's, the way the form of Bön is very similar to Buddhists because there's influence back and forth from each other. So it's as far as basic principles of believing karma, reincarnation, enlightenment, they are just really like the same. There's not much of differences. Main differences is, I think, Bön as an indigenous tradition, it has a lot of what we call causal vehicle teachings. The teachings related with the nature, teachings related with the spirit of the natures, a lot of different forms of healing practices. And also, I think people believe that the Tibetan whole knowledge of Tibetan medicine and astrology, there are also many of them are comes from the Bön tradition. And so there are a lot of practices related with that aspect. Nature and element practices are very earthy, very environmental, ecological spiritual type of practices are very much a kind of, I think, is a very unique, but which has now part of became like a Tibetan culture, like usage of prayer flags, making smoke offerings. So there are many Tibetan culture-related practices and rituals are very important part of the Tibetan culture. And I think it's very important to understand. It also is very important, and to preserve that is a very valuable thing to have in Tibetan tradition. So that these are all, I think, originally coming from the Bön. Every time in history, a new religion, new idea, new philosophy comes in the place where already long standing of history, tradition, wisdom, already there, it's always difficult to take place, to root there. So this is always, I think, it's a struggle. I think that's primary reason why there were a conflict, because it's new religion trying to come in and all having resistance to it. I think that seems like a kind of normal process, but it is not that one is better than the other one. It's more that one is already there and one is new, and it's adapting. It's a process of conflict, resolving conflicts. And now, both in Tibet and in exile, the relationship are much more improving, especially now many years now, His Holiness Dalai Lama has accepted the Bön as a fifth major spiritual tradition of Tibet. So every official gathering, meeting, reunion His Holiness Lungto Tenzin Wangyal Rinpoche is always present with His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and there's not much of conflicts there. It's like a lot of harmony in between different traditions, and then more and more so now. Well, my teachers, His Holiness Lungto Tenzin Wangyal Rinpoche and Yonzi Tenzin Namda Rinpoche, are really like the two main person in exile who have kept the flame alive and who have bridged the next generation to survive this transmission, knowledge, training. Otherwise, without these two people, and I think it's been really, really difficult. And when I was growing up, my teacher, Yonzi Rinpoche, he used to talk about it, how difficult it is to preserve it, how difficult it is to teach to us, because we were a group of very young and unmature and people. So as to training us was not easy job to preserve Bön tradition. After 59, when they came to India, and then that new generation came in India, training, we are the first generation. So to whom they have transmitted. Now this generation now is kind of bringing back to Tibet, back into Tolpo area and new places like in the West. Yeah, there are a number of them. Obviously, historically, like a Menri monastery, it's a most important one. And then in Tiden Rinpoche, which is in Nepal, which was original Tiden Rinpoche was in Tibet, where actually the seat of Tonpa Shenrab. And these are like a very important monastery, which is in exile right now. And then in Tibet, of course, there's the original Menri monastery, original Yungdungling monastery, and these are historically very important. But as far as the sizes are concerned, there are now much more bigger monasteries where like 700,000 monks, like that, like in eastern Tibet, called Ngawa Nangjik Gun. So there are many monasteries, but in Tibet, Bön is among all the other schools. Maybe some people say it's like a second largest among 5 schools. Exact number I don't know, but there are more or less, maybe we are not that many, so more or less between 20 to 30 teachers coming to the West or living in the West, going back and forth teaching, and but we are all those who are doing it. We are very closely connected to each other, and in fact we are since last year at Lingmicha Institute started our reunion of all the masters teaching in the West, and that this year, next month, we are starting in another second meeting in California. So we are very closely working together and doing a project of translations of original Bön texts into English and other languages. So Bön tradition in the West, it's in a kind of almost everywhere. In Europe, in Russia, and in US, and in Europe, many different places, and so it's kind of everywhere. We use a lot of webcast teachings, and we use giving online retreats or workshops, and the most important thing is we do the webcast, which is we do very regularly, and probably I'm not sure how many other teachers are doing. There are a number of other teachers are doing, But I think probably we are one of the bigger people, how you say, in terms of the, for example, we have 12 live translations, and I'm not sure how many other teachers who are doing webcasts has 12 languages live translation, and we will be anywhere from 28 to 40 countries any given time, and we do also regularly in a way like every month, sometime twice a month, like that webcast, which is free around the world. So we are doing and we are working to do real lot of more online. I think I'm not saying only Bön is important, like every indigenous tradition, every original cultures, I think are very important to understand the human history, to understand human potentiality, and particularly I think the Bön are very important to understand because this Bön has so much profound knowledge. Anywhere, what I say usually, anywhere from raw element, working with the raw element, earth, water, fire, air, space, it's very ecological oriented practices to very psychological oriented to very ultimate liberation, achieving body of light. A body of light in the highest form of teaching in the Bön, in the Dzogchen, a meditation of Dzogchen is the practices of the nature of mind, practices of inner awareness, inner light, practices of visions, practices with the sunlight, practice with the sky, practice in going into the dark room, experiencing a lot of visionary experiences. The outcome of that is to achieve a body of light. When you die, all your physical body transforms into light, body of light. So that is the ultimate goal. So all this knowledge exists in the Bön, therefore it's very important to preserve it.